All right, good evening, East Hampton Town Board. We're live on Channel 22. We're streaming to YouTube. You are being recorded, and the phone lines are open. You may begin your meeting.
Thank you, LTV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Board meeting of Thursday, March 6, 2025. Carol, if you could please read the roll call.
Present. Yep. Present.
Member Rogers?
Present.
Member Easement?
Present.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Present. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So tonight we have 6 public hearings. The first is to amend Chapter 255 zoning. It's the table of dimensional regulations, gross floor area for single-family homes. Second hearing is to amend the town code chapters for the personal wireless facilities. Public hearing number 3 is to amend Chapter 240 vehicles and traffic for paid parking. Public hearing number 4 is a notice for the Amagansett Fire District for the Promised Land Fire District for 2025. Then we have a hearing to accept a scenic easement for an urban renewal map at 3 Hedges Avenue. And the last public hearing is for a grant of scenic and conservation easement for 22 Shore Road in Amagansett. That's followed by public portion and then resolutions. Before we start, we have our town historian and town crier, Hugh King.
Oh, wait, you haven't heard me yet. Thank you for inviting all these people to hear me speak tonight. I have an hour and a half history of East Hampton.
Awesome.
All right. In July and August at the Fisher House in Montauk, the Montauk Historical Society will be putting up an exhibition on Prohibition. Leading up to that, there'll be 3 lectures. Next Wednesday, March 12th at 7 o'clock at the Fisher House, the town historian will be talking about how we got to Prohibition and what led up to it. And then in April, the future town historian, David Cataletto, who's going to get paid, is going to be talking about what happened in Montauk during Prohibition. And then on May 7th, the town crier will be down there talking about what happened in East Hampton during Prohibition, and then why did it fail? Okay. Today, the East Hampton Historical Society with Stacy Myers and myself gave a tour of the Panago and Gardner windmills to the John Marshall School. Councilman Lee showed up. Then he left when they found out the kids couldn't vote. So. I'm kidding. Also, last Saturday, the Trails Preservation Society toured the 3 village windmills with myself and the East Hampton Historical Society. Okay, buildings on our mind. Here we go. These problems happened in the 1650s. You ready? Okay, selling property, real estate. If you take up a lot in the town, you had to live on it yourself, and you could not sell it unless the town would approve and give consent. Building codes. Every house had to have a ladder that reached high enough to go to the top of the house, and if you didn't, you got a fine of 5 shillings. They had to go up and check your chimney as it went through the thatched roof to make sure it was daubed so it wouldn't start a fire. Building size. The public decided that the meeting house would be 26 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 8 feet high, and the roof would be made out of thatch, and there'd be no basement. Building code inspectors, 2 men would review all general fences, and finding any defect, put a chop on the rail, and if you did not mend the fence within 2 days, there would be a fine for every day that the fence isn't mended. Number 5, because of the scarcity of timber in 1676, no one from outside the town could cut down timber. And if you did, you'd pay 10 shillings for each tree cut down. That's all I got. The next time I come, I'm going to be talking about the African Americans and what they gave to our town. And then the following time, I'll be talking about women who've made an impact on East Hampton town history. Have a good meeting. I'm going to go home and watch it.
Okay, so tonight we have 17 people signed up. So we'll go through that list. Then I'm going to take some folks that are that are calling in, and then we'll come back and ask for a show of hands in the room. We ask you to kindly, out of respect for each other, this is going to be a very popular public hearing, that you kindly keep your comments to 3 minutes. LTV is going to have a clock on the screen counting down the 3 minutes, and then they're going to ring a bell when your time is up. Rather than me saying your time is up, I just hope that you can respect when the bell goes off so that others can have an opportunity to speak.
That's similar to the Academy Award.
So we're going to get started, and Carol, if you could read the first meeting notice.
The public hearings will be held live and in person by the town board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, Channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person, by agent, by attorney, or by written comment addressed to the East Hampton Town Clerk, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton. Comments may also be submitted to the town clerk by email to cbrennan@ehamptonny.gov. All comments must be received by the town clerk by the date and time of the public hearing. Please check the meeting agenda posted on the town's website for any changes and for updated information. Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, on Thursday, March 6 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider comments of all persons regarding the amendment of Chapter 255 zoning of the East Hampton Town Code in order to amend Section 255-1110, an abstract of which follows: a local law amending Chapter 255, Sections 255-1110-3, Residence District, Table of Dimensional Regulations, Part 1, gross floor area, single-family residence, maximum square feet, gross floor area, single-family residence, maximum square feet, 7% of lot area plus 1,500 or 10,000, whichever is less. The full text of the local law is available for inspection in the office of the town clerk at 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, during regular business hours.
Thank you, Carol. So the first person signed up is John Bariliski Pels. John, I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
Don't start the clock yet. Seriously, don't start the clock yet. Can I submit to that? He's going to make a short speech according to the letter right now.
Okay. And if you could just, everyone, when you get up to the podium, if you could just say your name for the record so the clerk can capture it.
Okay. My name is John Borelski. I'm both a professional engineer and a licensed land surveyor, and I also live in the town of East Hampton. Don't worry, I didn't bring my calculator, so I'm not going to make numbers up. Okay, also, as a professional engineer and a land surveyor, I've been involved with land planning and preparing surveys for building permits in the town of East Hampton since the mid-1970s. That's why I need these glasses. Okay, I've seen many changes over these years in the town code. Open space policies, clearing restrictions, building coverage, total coverage calculations, restrictions, okay? So currently, the building permit surveys that we make, they require clearing calculations, building coverage, and total coverage calculations on the survey, existing and proposed. I have not heard any concerns of GFA for a very long time. This just didn't come up with all the clients and everything else until very recently. And I'm not sure if they were actually part of the building permit applications, or if they were overlooked or not enforced. Of course, myself as well as many others, we can take a ride around the town and see houses that are very large, that are not in conformance with they don't fit the surrounding areas. They're just abnormally large. And these are even recent houses, and I don't think they fit the current GFA. And I believe that gives everybody a false sense that the GFA is not working and that we have to reduce the GFA because these big houses. I don't believe some of these big houses fit the code now. Maybe a lack of oversight or just not enforcing it in the building department. And I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that. The proposed resolution would be over a 30% decrease, in the GFA. I believe this is a gross overreach and a taking of property owners' rights and property values. Has there been any study or any kind of consideration of how many houses existing out there will now become non-conforming and not have any rights to have any building additions or expansions? I see people spending large amounts of money to buy properties out here. And these properties, a lot of them are older houses and they need expansions, modernizations. People want a new kitchen addition because their kitchens are small. They want a larger master bedroom because they don't have a bedroom suite. Okay? If there were a new GFA passed, those things would not happen to a lot of people. A lot of people would suffer the same loss and damage. And I don't think they would know what happened until it hit them. It would be too late. Nobody understands this. I saw this in Southampton town where in the summer one night, 1980s, they had a hearing there. They put through clearing regulations. Nobody knew what happened and it was done. People were not aware. They didn't know what hit them. Okay. I'm also puzzled. This is a little bit off subject, but it does. I have one last thing I have to say. Everybody here and listening should go back tomorrow night and look at something called class action lawsuit. What that is and how it affects
John, you're
everybody
addressing the
here.
board and you need to wrap up, please.
I'm wrapped up, but class action lawsuit, everyone have to take a look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Bob DeLuca, Group for the East End. Welcome, Bob.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor and Town Board members. My name is Bob DeLuca, and I have served as president of Group for the East End for the last 33 years. For the record, the group was founded in 1972 and represents the conservation and community planning interests of several thousand member households, businesses, and individuals across the town, the 5 towns of Eastern Long Island, including several hundred member households here in East Hampton. Tonight, I want to thank the board, the planning staff, the zoning board, zoning code working group, and all the stakeholders for their extensive and collective efforts to address one of the town's most enduring and important land use challenges and its related regulations. Based on our review of the subject proposal now before you, we offer our broad support for the continuing effort to get a handle on the rising tide of oversized homes being constructed at the clear expense of the community's hard-won rural and semi-rural character and its limited resources and infrastructure. More specifically, we ask the board to return to its consideration of the recommendation provided by the Zoning Code Working Group, which sought to limit future residential construction to a formula of 7% plus 1,300 square feet. Absent a substantial rational basis for rejecting the original recommendation of the working group, we're further concerned that the more generous formula now before you might be ripe for challenge and potentially protract your efforts for several years, depending on the action of the courts and the conviction of the petitioners, one of which you may have just heard. In our view, and as outlined in the letter that we provided to you earlier today, the working group proposal reflects careful consideration of the town's longstanding and duly adopted comprehensive plan, dating all the way back to 2005. The 2005 plan made it clear that the town sought to, quote, develop and adopt maximum house size restrictions to address the, quote, monster house construction trend that had begun at the time and which continues today. As the board is also aware, its more recently updated purposes in its own zoning code clearly, quote, prioritize, quote, reducing overall build out and minimizing adverse impacts on town infrastructure while protecting natural and cultural features. The recently adopted zoning purpose further establishes a policy of prioritizing community needs to prevent disorderly, quote, growth for the sake of growth, while, quote, sustaining the long-established character of hamlets and neighborhoods, and promoting development that is compatible and harmonious with rural, natural, and historic land use patterns. Finally, and you don't have to take my word for it, a review of the local land use codes across the 5 East End towns will demonstrate that home size limitations originally proposed are fairly consistent with many of those GFA limitations and other home size standards you'll see in your neighboring towns and villages. This is not an extraordinary proposal that's before you, but it's indeed substantive, and we would ask you to consider it. In the end, it's been some 20 years since the town carefully considered and adopted clear guidance on the issue of home size, and every opportunity since this policy, it has remained intact, and even embodied in the clear language of the town zoning code. So it's time once again to take the kind of stand that has long set East Hampton apart from so many other communities that have surrendered their resources and character to the inexorable pressure for ever more development. East Hampton can do better, and we hope that you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next up is John Chimples, and that's followed by Martha Crizell. Welcome, John.
Thank you. My name is John Chimples. I'm a resident of Montauk. I'll be very brief. I encourage the board to vote in favor of the original proposal of 7 and 1300. I think the problems of overdevelopment in the town are incredibly obvious. The most obvious to me is the traffic situation and increasing the number of people, which having larger houses does, is going to exacerbate that exponentially. And I think until we start to get a handle on traffic issues, septic issues, we really need to throttle what I consider overdevelopment. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up is Martha, and that's followed by Lou Cortese. Welcome, Martha.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having us. I'm representing the concerned citizens of Montauk tonight. And as an environmental leader, we're here because we believe that the environmental impacts of large houses are a concern, and we're particularly focused on the energy and resource demands. Obviously, bigger houses use significantly more energy to run and more natural resources to build. In light of these environmental concerns, the proposed reduction in house size is an important move toward curbing house size in East Hampton. Accordingly, CCOM supports the recommendations that resulted from intensive study by the town's zoning code amendment working group, reducing the GFA formula to 7% plus 1,300 square feet. We do so because the zoning code recommendation is a result of more than a year's worth of work sessions, public comment, and evaluation of alternatives to ensure that the amendment is consistent with the town's zoning purposes. For that reason, we urge that recommendation. I would like to just take 1 minute to remind everybody, I know the board is very well aware of this, but to remind everybody in the room who made up the zoning code amendment working group. And it was a council member, a chief building inspector, the assistant director of environmental protection, the director of code enforcement, the zoning board of appeals vice chair, a zoning board of appeals member, and a former chairperson of the zoning board of appeals. In addition to that, extensive support staff was provided. There was a senior planner, a deputy town attorney, an assistant county attorney, as well as an administrative assistant from the building department. These are the experts. These are the people that did the work, did the studies, know what they're doing, and for that reason, that recommendation should be taken seriously, and I would urge on behalf of CCOM, the board to revert back to that more conservative formula and move forward with the work at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Next up is Lou Cortese, and that's followed, and Bill Aiken will follow Lou. Welcome, Lou.
Thank you. Lou Cortese, not here in any official capacity. I'm here under my other alternative identity as a mild-mannered retiree residing in the formerly quiet and previously quaint village of Montauk. Let me distill down my argument as succinctly as I can. It's important to remember that we've been living for years now with a town-wide alarm and panic as to both an increased intensity of house scale as well as neighborhood density. This was and continues to be an almost universally accepted view as a crisis. To deal with this calamity, the Zoning Code Amendment Work Group was convened to develop solutions using painstaking research, analyzing data, and careful consideration of impacts to different social and business demographics. About a dozen individuals objectively, without any self-interest in the project other than a commitment to be of service to the needs of the wider community, worked tirelessly towards finding workable, unbiased remedies. The Zoning Code Work Group arrived at a GFA formula of 7% plus 1,300 square feet that it felt would have a meaningful impact on the problem that everyone had agreed was egregious enough that it needed a solution. At that point, one segment of our population, who, by the way, fears their own personal financial condition will be negatively impacted, began their loud and clamorous campaign to prevent adoption of the zoning group's GFA code change. They couldn't say that the reason they're against it is because their profit margin may shrink, so they proffered arguments having to do with individual property rights and curtailment of home expansion by young property owners. In fact, the speculative bubble makes home ownership more expensive. Affordability by young people is degraded. In my view, the argument is between individual avarice and community-wide welfare. The irony is that as the community benefits, each of its individual members benefit as well. I urge the town board to decide in favor of the community and all of its individuals and adopt the 7% plus 1,300 square foot formula. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Next up is Bill Aiken, and Bill will be followed by Biddle Duke. Welcome, Bill.
Madam Chairman, Board, happy to be here. My name is Bill Aiken. I'm a resident of Montauk, having first set foot on that property in 1953. I've seen a few changes. The primary goal of the 2005 comprehensive plan was to maintain the rural or semi-rural character of the town. But on page 39 of that plan, the planners specifically addressed the situation that they did not know how to set a saturation population for the town. So instead, they relied on limiting the number of building lots. Nobody knows the size of this town in terms of people. The winter census population is useless. Most of the people are here right now. But this relying on build out did not anticipate the size of the houses that were going to be on those lots and the number of people that could live in those houses. It did not anticipate the one-story house that gets torn down and becomes 2 stories, doubling the occupancy of that house, which does not change the size of the town. It did not anticipate the summer short-term rentals that jam our houses with weekend guests way beyond the capacity of those houses. So what I'm saying is that houses and property and lots are not necessarily the primary problem. The primary problem is the number of people. They cause traffic jams. They leave debris on the beach. They require emergency services. They need utilities and town surfaces and stretch our whatever we have we need as a town to service a growing population. So bottom line, I'm in favor of anything, including this proposal, to limit the size of houses, because although the effect may be minimal, it will begin to help in some minor way the size of the town, which is the number of people here. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next up is Biddle Duke, and Biddle will be followed by Christina Buckley.
Who's reading for Biddle? Who is? Lou.
Oh, okay.
Biddle couldn't make it tonight, so he asked me to read a letter that he wrote.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you to the town board and the town staff who have worked so hard for so long to get us here, particularly Kate Rogers and Jane Maring. My roots here go back 4 generations, 5 if you include my daughter who is trying to make it here. Roots are less important at this hearing than love for this place and the values that I hope we all share. The choice today is straightforward. We can do nothing, and every last remaining neighborhood with the last remnants of financially accessible housing will be transformed into ever more big houses for wealthy part-time residents. We can do nothing, and the current ever bigger scale of new construction will continue to upend traditional neighborhoods. We know where we are headed if we do nothing. We're in a profit-driven race to build this place out of reach for anyone but wealthy retired folks and seasonal residents. Is that what we want? Isn't it way past time to tap on the brakes? Isn't it past time to acknowledge that the scale of development has gotten way out of hand? You've been given ample data demonstrating how much bigger houses have gotten and are getting in this town. You have been given data showing how long time local neighborhoods are being transformed. The outcry 2 years ago about all that was loud and unequivocal. This hall was packed with residents asking you to save our neighborhoods. Rein in the mass and scale of new construction. The GFA proposal at hand is an appropriate step in response to the community's concerns about scale and massing. The proposal also reduces just a bit of the financial upside for developers and speculators and extraordinarily wealthy people who want big homes. The proposal encourages housing that is more in keeping with what is already here. All of us lament the loss, or rather non-existence, of accessible housing and the soul-crushing transformation of our neighborhoods. But even as we despair at the problems that development is creating, we want the fewest possible obstacles, such as tougher zoning rules, to stand in the way of maximum appreciation of our real estate project or homes. Giving up several hundred square feet off the top of an absolute maximum size is something that, for the most part, only developers will take advantage of. It represents a modest but important sacrifice towards protecting and preserving this place we love, which brings us back to values. Here are mine, and I hope they are yours too. To strive as individuals and as a community to meet our needs and live amid the beauty and bounty of this place without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs and their own ability to enjoy this very same beauty and these very same bounties. Zoning codes are intended to protect our quality of life today, but they exist also to protect our children and our grandchildren and every generation after that. Please consider this as you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. So next up is Christina Buckley, followed by Patricia Sanson. Welcome, Christina.
Hi, Christina Buckley. I agree with a recent newspaper editorial that said we need a rebalancing in East Hampton. To rebalance the runaway real estate market that is wiping out whole neighborhoods of modest-sized houses in favor of maxed-out estates that are marketed to non-residents and investors. These neighborhoods, our neighborhoods, are radically changing due to the ever-increasing property prices that are pushed by developers, builders, realtors, etc. It is in their best interest to block these proposed zoning changes simply because they want to continue to build bigger and cash in. Will you let them continue to do so? I have heard this board say many times, we are elected public servants, we are not politicians, and we rely on your voice. We need you, the community, to speak out about what you care about so we can make informed decisions. For close to 2 years, this community has been coming before you, making their opinions known. The people that live here year-round have been telling you that things are wildly out of balance. Local residents are being priced out of their neighborhoods. Based on the for sale signs sprouting up literally every day, Springs is on its way to changing over from a year-round community of working people in modest-sized homes with open views to becoming an area that looks like all the other parts of East Hampton. Overscaled McMansions behind giant hedges that have a fortress-like appearance and feeling. Because these modest properties are among the last bastion to be exploited and developed, local residents are incentivized to sell, to move away. The lack of available properties and the self-serving interests of all who make money from this industry are jacking up the prices in areas like Springs. I love living in Springs, but if in a few years my modest house is surrounded by McMansions, imposing hedges, and electric gates, and I no longer can pass my neighbors daily on my street walking their dogs, saying hello, I may choose to leave also. And it will be because the soul of my community is gone. And once it's gone, it's never coming back. I am here in support of the proposal to amend the zoning code to the 7% plus 1,300 square feet formula. It is reasonable, rational, and will help to rebalance the current situation. This isn't about nostalgia or trying to go back to simpler times. It is about saving what little is left of what makes East Hampton and all of its neighborhoods a place we love and cherish. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Next up is Patricia Sansone, and she will be followed by Ruben Cano. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you. My name is Patricia Sansone. Thank you to the town board members for this opportunity to address you this evening. You've heard many polished speeches from the moneyed interests. I ask you to listen to the humble and passionate voices of those of us who truly love East Hampton, not for what it means or what it becomes in the summer, but for what it is. A rich world of exquisite natural beauty, a world where man and nature have intertwined for centuries, where people respected the environment and their neighbors. Where has that gone? Once upon a time, size and scale and neighborliness mattered. Now it's an anything goes mentality with no consideration of the consequences of what is built or what is destroyed in the process. No one can deny the uglification of our neighborhoods. The land is stripped bare, the structures pushed to their allowable maximums, and often beyond if granted the coveted variance. These oversized structures are blatant affronts to quality of life. No one wants or deserves to live in the shadow of a house looming over theirs, and the ensuing loss of privacy, quiet, and comfort. In these times of severe environmental disruption, it is indefensible to destroy precious habitat and use massive resources to build, outfit, and heat and cool these monstrosities. The architects, builders, developers need to follow a moral, not a monetary path, to lead a movement to slow down, scale back, be less ostentatious. What is more glorious and what brings us more happiness than this beautiful town of East Hampton? Board members, I ask that you please require restraint and respect. Thank you. Thank you.
Next up is Ruben Cano, followed by Ed Krug. Welcome, Ruben.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't have as composed a message as everyone else. My name is Ruben Cano. I'm a resident of East Hampton, a year-round resident. I'm here to speak out and say I am not in favor of the proposed GFA change. And the reason is personal, but I think that growing families, year-round residents with growing families, people that are here and will be the future here, do need the room and opportunity to accommodate their growing needs. This is a changing world and we have changing needs. For instance, I work in Manhattan, but I'm able to live here full-time. and spend all of our money here. We ice skate at Buckskills, we buy our shoes at Gubbins, and my wife was the president of the PTA of the middle school for a couple of years, and our kids are excelling here. But we're able to do that because I work remotely, but I need space to work remotely. And that's something that's not considered when we're asking about growing space. I also, just for context, we live here full time. We've been here for 10 years, but my family's in Europe. Most of my family lives in Spain. My wife, she's from Russia. She has family in Italy. We don't have family help. My mother, who is one of the few people in my family who lives here, lives 85 miles away. We need to bring her into our home. She's over 80. I don't have the space for her. Someone said, can't you put her in the basement? She's 80. I don't think that's necessarily an option. My children, without having a big family infrastructure, they need to have the opportunity to return here to East Hampton. How can I do that if they can't afford to live here? Now, how can I have them and their families come and stay with me in the summertime when we can get so much value out of this? And this isn't me speaking from the position of a developer or a builder. I understand that we want to limit some egregious overbuilds, but it seems like this measure is very broad and broad and wide, and ultimately in this broad stroke measure, it's taking into account a lot of the feelings of people who've been here for a long time, but we're not taking into account the feelings of the people who will inherit this place and what we need. And frankly, I need space to grow. And I went through the trouble and expense of getting an architect to design a house, and now I'm several hundred feet over per the new rules. For several hundred feet, I may have wasted tens of thousands of dollars, and frankly, reconsider how this town can support me. But we have supported this town. We have youth in this town that will support this town, and we'll be the residents of the future, and we'll be at this meeting one day in the distant future. But we may choose to pack up, move to Manhattan, and rent our place here, and be one of the many renters, or the people that subsidize their income through Airbnb here. I certainly don't want to do that. We've finally found a place that we feel comfortable. We want a place we want to live forever, and yet some of these measures do seem punitive to the full-time residents who are not of incredible wealth. We just want quite literally an extra several hundred or possibly 1,000 extra square feet to accommodate a growing family, not to inundate this town in a negative way or detract from the character. Quite opposite, we'd like to contribute to the character of this town. And I feel that in some ways this measure is limiting us in our ability to do that. Thank you for your time.
Next up is Ed Krug, followed by Sean McKee. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you very much. My name is Ed Krug. I am, like Lou, not here in an official capacity as a planning board member, but as a private citizen and a builder. And I'm here to speak out with enthusiasm about these proposed changes, the ones that are on the table. I love this town. I've lived here for 30 years. I've had a design and build business out here for the past 11 years. And I'm not saying that my experience as a builder is universal. There are many other business models for being in this world of designing and building than mine, but I just want to make a pitch for building smaller. And by the way, my impression is the numbers we're talking about, these are not small houses, even with the new GFA limitations. These are sizable houses, particularly as you get into the half-acre and larger domain. So, my business has really been about helping people renovate houses that are seasonal houses, making them into full-time year-round houses, expanding them to accommodate a new generation of kids. And many of those people, I feel, would have purchased a new build house if there were more manageable size houses available to them. And I hear this all the time. I want something that sort of suits my needs and is manageable. So I think it's very possible to, be in this business and accommodate these changes fairly easily into a business model and still produce sophisticated outcomes that meet people's needs. But I will say, though, that above and beyond all of that, my other sense of this is that, and my other concern is property values long term. I feel that every time that there is a new outsized house built in a neighborhood that overshadows its neighbors, that is incompatible, we diminish our community character by that much. And 1,000 paper cuts later, We are not going to be the charming semi-rural place that attracted us all here in the first place. And this is not going to be a town that people are going to want to be in, play in, live in, and invest in. So I really urge you to adopt these new zoning code changes. Thank you.
Next up is Sean McKee, and Sean is followed by Hersey Egginton. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you, Sean McGee. I'm here to speak against the new GFA proposal. During the last open discussion, it was stated that GFA was being readdressed and reduced because of the support of the public. From what I have seen, this is a largely divisive topic, one which has seen an equal amount of opposition. Stating that this has public support when so much opposition is present begs one to question whether all sides are truly being heard. Furthermore, at least one person appointed to the committee has an open and public disdain for the home building and building industry. This individual has an evident and clear bias, which has regularly been on display through public comments. So I ask, where was your overly aggressive developer or contractor on this committee? Without equal voices, there is no equal representation. One-sided bias leads to a more aggressive recommended reduction of GFA and has no place on a committee determining something of this magnitude. So again, I ask, are all sides truly being heard and represented? You aim to reduce the GFA of every property in East Hampton, and doing so, decreasing the value of all of our properties. Matters of this importance deserve to be brought to a public vote. If a school district raises taxes beyond 2%, it must be voted on publicly and passed by a supermajority of over 60%. Yet our property value can be significantly reduced and our property rights removed without a true say in the matter. Let the people decide what we want, and if you have the public support you speak of, a vote will prove that. David, you spoke openly about how nice it is to have the space to raise your family, yet this reduction tells much of the public we aren't deserving of that same space. Despite purchasing the property and property rights to do so, we're being told we don't get to have what you have. Please put yourself in our position and understand where we are coming from and how unfair and wrong this feels. Tom, you mentioned people's properties being their most important asset and how you don't want to decrease that value too much. Why are you okay decreasing it at all? That's our life savings, our retirements, and our nest eggs. Kate, in your last presentation, every chart displayed columns showcasing the size of houses with full basements and garages, even though neither of those are included in GFA. Existing structures without 7-foot basements can't be remodeled to make that space livable. The only fair and consistent measure is actual GFA, and that should be the only measurement presented to the public. Or are you encouraging us all to knock down our houses and rebuild them with fill basements? The charts are not a fair representation of the reality many of us are facing. This brings me to my last point. Regardless of lot size, the board acknowledges a 600 square foot attached garage as a right. We are fighting for the space for our families. The town is trying to significantly reduce building size, but then a 600 square foot attached garage is acceptable within that structure. That is not livable space. How does that make sense and how does that help us? The absolute least that you can do is make the 600 square feet of the attached garage flexible space, where homeowners can decide whether they want an attached garage or if they need that space for their families. If I have no use for a garage, I should be able to use that space for bedrooms for my children. Allowing the allotted garage space to be livable and included in GFA has no impact on total house size, above ground coverage, neighborhood character, or curbside appearance. All this does is give us place to live. Please prove to us that you're not trying to push people out. Do one thing that shows you actually care how this impacts the people who are living here and raising families here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So next up is Hersey, and that's followed by Jess Frost. Welcome, Hersey.
Hello, town board. My name is Hersey Egginton. I live in Wainscott on a 0.67 acre lot that my wife and I purchased in 1978 in a 1,900 square foot home that we built new in 2007. We live there comfortably. We have our family and our grandkids on a regular basis. I am in full support of the proposed change in the GFA formula for new house construction in East Hampton to 7% of lot area plus 1,300 square feet. The current formula too often creates houses on smaller lot sizes that are out of proportion compared with neighboring previously built older homes. These larger homes use more energy to heat and light in the winter months and to air condition in the summer. Further, given the escalation in land costs and construction, these homes are extremely costly and are often built by people who don't live in them year-round and are being rented on a short-term basis to underwrite their high cost of construction or acquisition. The trash generated from these short-term reoccurring rentals is in itself a problem. The corollary problem resulting from these larger houses being built is that local year-round residents are being priced out of the East Hampton housing market. While this continuing development enriches developers whose other business and sources of funds are often located elsewhere, architects, builders, the real estate industry, and the online rental sites, it is not sustainable and over time has diminished the quality of life for those living here. You need to change the GFA formula so that these supersized houses can no longer be built or offered for sale. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Hersey. Next up is Jess Frost, followed by Janice Delano.
Hi.
Welcome, Jess.
Thanks. My name is Jess Frost. I have lived in East Hampton for over 50 years, the past 8 of which I've been running a free nonprofit arts center on a town-owned CPF property. Duck Creek is proof of what good planning can achieve, preserving history, fostering community, and protecting our shared environment. But unchecked development threatens that progress. Oversized, ecologically damaging homes are out of step with our community's values, eroding affordability, depleting resources, and diminishing our quality of life. After almost 2 years of research and groundwork, the Zone Code Working Group has proposed a reasonable rebalancing of the GFA formula from 10% 1,600 square feet to 7% 1,300. This is a reasonable adjustment that still allows for spacious homes while preventing supersized construction that is destroying our neighborhoods. These changes are not radical, they're essential. But it's not enough. We must also close loopholes that allow oversized development to continue unchecked by adopting these zoning code reforms, reducing and regrading soil displacement, preventing excessive excavation of walkout basements, counting garages and unfinished basements over 600 square feet as part of house size, limiting accessory structure heights, and capping house sizes at 10,000 square foot from 20,000. These changes protect groundwater, conserve energy, and preserve the character of our town, ensuring that East Hampton remains a livable, sustainable community for future generations. I urge you to support these zoning reforms and protect the future of our town from its most invasive species, which is unchecked greed. Thank you.
Denise, followed by Jane Maring. Is Janice here?
I'm Janice Delano. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak for a minute. I just wanted to say that I do think that this one size all sort of fits formula could be done better with a few more nuances to it. I just realized looking at these formulas, I've sent you a chart where I showed what happens with a 1/4 acre lot, a 1/2 acre lot, and a 1 acre lot, and I wish I could put this chart on the board. But the old formula pre-2017 was 2,800 square feet on a 1/4 acre lot. 4,000 square feet on a half-acre lot and then 6,400 square feet on a 1-acre lot. Now the same numbers are 2,600, 3,600, and 5,600. Now the 2,600 is on the quarter-acre lot, and that's only a 10,000 square foot lot. It's very small, so it's being inhibited by a lot of factors, including setbacks, a lot of other things. And now many people are saying they're in support of the original proposal, which would have made that small parcel 2,000 square feet. And I think it's kind of the board to have thought this through. And under this revised proposal, it would be 2,300 square feet. That's still a very small house on a quarter acre. And to that young man's point, you would think that on the smaller parcels like that, someone could have a choice between the 600 square feet of garage and it should be more nuanced. When you get to the half-acre lot, there's another issue coming in that I just realized this last weekend, which I did not realize that the gross floor area, I believe, that's what I saw when I read the definition. You can all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that does not include porches and several other overhead structures. So you could have a huge porch around the house that could be the thing that a lot of people are saying is making, they see these big houses that don't seem to conform. It could be because they don't conform to the GFA if you include the porch. And right now, I think the formula at 1/2 acre, which is 3,600 square feet, that's exactly what it is in Sagaponack, because I just built in Sagaponack, and Sagaponack Village is known for being extremely restrictive. That's because they include the porches and all those other things you all have in gross floor. You all do not have in gross floor area. They have everything except a 16-inch roof overhang as part of their gross floor area. So I think that should be worked into this formula also. It should be an absolutely consistent formula that includes everything, including porches and things like that. Now, when you get to the 1 acre, when you did change this formula to 7% plus 1,500 square feet, the new numbers would be 2,300 square feet for a quarter acre parcel, 10,000, which is really small, tiny house, 2,900 square feet for a half acre, which is way smaller than Sagaponack, except now somebody could still stick a big porch on there and maybe get close to the size of Sagaponack, but still you have setback limitations. So, and then you get up to a 1 acre parcel, and a 1 acre parcel, now they'd be restricted to 4,300 square feet when it used to be, when it currently is 5,600 before that. And that's on a very, very small, that's a very small parse when see from the front, when you look at something like that. Am I out of town? Oh, when you look at something like that, it is very.
You need to speak on the microphone and please wrap it up.
When you look at something like that from the street, you have a house that's like 30 feet by 70 feet. It's not on a 1 acre. You've got 200 feet by 200 feet with 60-foot setbacks on all sides, and you're not going to notice the difference between a 4,300 square foot house and a 5,600 square foot house from the street or from the neighbors, because there's so much of a setback on each side. So I think this is a really unfair formula at 1 acre to cover this situation, but it may be, I don't know how it would be fair. Anyway,
thank you. Jane, welcome, Jane.
Good evening, board. My name is Jane Meering. I live in Amagansett. I'm not speaking as a member of any formal board. I speak as a full-time individual and as a member of the Zoning Code Amendment Working Group. By the way, a seat I have every right to occupy and have earned my way onto and have made contributions. I'm feeling a little verklempt because 3 years of a lot of work and involvement that I've had and done comes down to these 3 minutes. And I want to spend more of my time on positives now rather than being in combat mode. The positive, why we are here, because so many great people living in the town, those people visiting too, who people in the town seeing and seething about things they see, but willing to speak up about their concerns, about what is being built around them. And the other positive, that this board has been listening to the people, all the people, and taking this process for almost 2 years now in a very serious way. But I must address a few of the talking points I've heard being spread. First, that the change will result in catastrophe, a collapse of property values, toppling the economy, leading to unemployment of hundreds, if not thousands. And second, that what is on the table is somehow extremist. On the first part, I can find no shred of evidence, absolutely nothing to verify these fear-making talking points, not when I look at 25 years of real estate data, not when I read decades of commentary by real estate agents talking about the things that drive the market, nothing when I look at, when I pour through scholarly research about what drives prices of property and houses. Not when I study the impact at the last two times the town made a formula change, and most dramatically, not when I studied closely what happened on Martha's Vineyard, a place very similar dynamics to ours, when they put an upper max of 3,500 on 3-acre properties. What happened there? Not catastrophe, house size reduced by 40% and prices more than doubled, and a number of the towns around them thought it was such a good thing that they've adopted it too. And then on this issue of it being extreme or not, the only things that are extreme is the shocking size of mass and scale of what's being built these days in every neighborhood. What's extreme is the affordability catastrophe before us that the most current and recent land use and development trends are exacerbating. And what is also extreme are the challenges to our overall sustainability, water quality, loss of habitat, shoreline erosion. So in conclusion, 29 seconds, it's human nature to look through the prism of self-interest. So indeed, it's to be expected that many will focus more on what they believe is taken away than what the broader context and weighing the potential benefits that might ensue from these changes. We all fancy ourselves and believe, and we are part of a community. But if we really are part of a community, then maybe we as individuals have to give up something, have to be willing to, because it has to be for a greater good of the community. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. So I've gone through the list of everyone that signed up. So I'm just going to turn to LTV. Matthew, how many folks do we have on the line?
We have 11 callers at this time.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the first 5, and then we'll come back to the room for a show of hands, and we'll go back and forth. So if you could put the first caller through, that would be great.
Okay, great. And callers, when you come on, if you could mute your television before you start speaking, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. And I'm unmuting the first caller, number ending in 23 or 2310.
Hello. May I speak for Carol Steinberg of Two Dogs? She's my wife. She's not able to come to the phone, but I'd like to read her statement with your permission.
Okay, please do.
Thank you. I am Carol Steinberg of 2 Dogwood Drive in Springs, next door to a new monster house, which unfortunately had to knock down maybe 40-year-old trees, maybe a dozen of them. I heartily support the proposal of the zoning code amendment working group of 7% plus 1,300 square feet. The group arrived at their proposal after much study and discussion, and it takes into account all interests. Kate Rogers showed us all in great detail and with visuals that this formula provides ample room on all lots in East Hampton for good-sized homes to accommodate all reasonable needs. In my will, I am leaving my house to the Peconic Land Trust with a conservation easement that runs with the land that prevents a monster house ever being built on my lot. That is not enough. The town board needs to act on behalf of all of us. I call on each town board member to honor your obligation to those who elected you and to the town's comprehensive plan, and not interest groups and those who spread misinformation and support the proposal of the zoning code amendment working group to the benefit of the people, the character, and the precious resources of the town of East Hampton. Respectfully, Carol Steinberg, Esquire. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew, if you could put through the next caller.
Okay. I'm muting caller with the number ending in 5138.
Hello, this is Bill Crane from the East Hampton Group for Wildlife. Our group strongly supports a reduction in the size of new homes. At present, the construction of large and luxurious homes requires the destructions of trees, bushes, and ground that provide wildlife habitats. The current situation is unfair to our animal relatives. Trees themselves are extremely valuable. They prevent soil erosion, they beautify our community, they absorb pollutants, they provide shade, and by absorbing and storing carbon dioxide, they help fight global warming. In this process of carbon absorption, they release oxygen that animals need to live, including humans. The Town Zoning Code Amendment, the working group has made a recommendation that seems very reasonable. Please take action to reduce the size of the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Matthew, if you could put through the caller.
Sure. Next caller, number ending in 7877.
Hi, it's Cray Van Sickle. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Craig. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Cray Van Sickle from Spring. Been a real estate agent for the past 30-some-odd years out here, and just connecting my current comments to my prior comments, I had been in favor of having a progressive formula that sort of was a little more generous for the smaller lots and more restrictive for the larger lots. And the sort of suggestion that I had given did address the proportion of the basement relative to the upper stories, but that has not become part of the consideration. And given that that is not part of the consideration, using a quarter-acre lot as an example, a 2,000 square foot GFA from the 7% and 1,300 square foot formula that was originally proposed by the working group, again, on a quarter of acre would give you 2,000 square feet. If you were to have that distributed over 2 stories above and a third of, and a half of the 2,000 square foot be for the lower level, that would be the equivalent to the footprint of the 1,000 square foot first floor. It would be a 3,000 square foot house. But given that there's no restriction on the basements, you could have a 1-story, 2,000 square foot house that would cover the GFA and a full, almost 2,000 square foot basement, which would result in a 4,000 square foot house. When you go up scale of the larger lots, the sizes of the potential full build-out become enormous in a very short period of time. On a 1-acre lot, you could have 8,000 square foot house. And that's on the less restrictive of the proposals that perhaps are being considered. Obviously, if you had 7% plus 1,500, you could have a much larger house above. With a 1-story GFA on 1 story and then a full build out of the basement. So I would greatly support the more restrictive 7% plus 1,300 square feet. I don't think it necessarily will compel the best development pattern. I think that there will be people that will want to have more of their GFA above grade on smaller lots, and that they will feel, put out by this. But I think that the more permissive formula of 7 and 15 is going to allow too big a houses. It doesn't do enough to constrain the houses that are inevitably going to take advantage of a smaller second story, a larger first story, and a very large basement. So I would support and urge you to adopt the 7% and 1,300 square foot, and perhaps consider the basement with a different way of approaching it in the future than was proposed in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Matthew, if you could put the next caller through.
Okay, next caller, number ending in 4602, unmuting.
Good evening, Town Board members and East Hampton residents. This is Betsy Petrosky calling in to add my voice and offer my position on tonight's zoning code change public hearing. So here we are 2 years later that Supervisor Gonzalez made good on a campaign promise and commissioned a new zoning code amendment working group committee to do a deep dive analysis on a much needed zoning code change being discussed tonight to reduce the maximum GFA on townwide small lots, particularly in densely populated neighborhoods where, as we know, new oversized build-outs are the norm, that are crammed into modest lots that then loom over their neighbors' properties, blocking sunlight and the night sky, in addition to excessive clearing to accommodate these structures. I ask the board tonight to zoom out from the nuts and bolts of this proposal for just 1 minute. And remember that East Hampton Town prides itself on the preservation of open space land. We dedicate significant CPF funding for this very initiative. So why wouldn't we also want to save, protect, create, and preserve open space around our homes and properties in our hamlets neighborhoods? One has everything to do with the other, and they go hand in hand. This is the big picture. Though a little late, we can now protect what is left, because if not protected, this will be the demise of our beautiful town as we knew it, and now as we know it today, because we are on the brink of losing our individual and community open space in our neighborhoods. This is and should be the mandate of our town board and residents. It is on you, our elected town board members, who now hold in your hands this opportunity for open space between our property lines. I trust you'll make the right decision with your approval on this important vote, and finally put the second part of the updated zoning code change into action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Betsy. You put the next caller through, please, Matthew.
Okay, unmuting phone number ending in 2399.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, Supervisor Burke Gonzalez and members of the Town Board of East Hampton. This is Susan McGraw-Keeber, full-time resident of East Hampton. I'm sorry I won't be able to be there in person, but I wanted to call and let you know my position as a former real estate broker of several decades, and more recently a member of the East Hampton Town Trustees for 6 years, where I was deeply devoted to the preservation and protection of our natural resources. I'm calling in less than 3 minutes to say I am definitely in favor and support of the amendment to the gross floor area change of 7% plus 1,500 square feet. I spoke earlier in the year and of last year and let you know exactly how I feel and why. And I thank you so very much for the 2 years you have spent on this issue, which is vitally important to the future of our community and our children and our grandchildren, of which I am now a proud grandma. Thank you so very much, all of you, and also a special shout out to Kate Rogers, Deputy Supervisor, for taking this on and doing all the research and the work entailed. It's a big project, and I thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, so we're going to come back to the room, take a few people, and then we'll go back to the phones. Larry, you're the first one to have your hand up. And then you can go after. Well, Larry's going to go first. All right.
She can go first.
Larry, if you wouldn't mind.
All right, I have to take this off to do that.
Sure.
All right, good evening, board, and
could you just pull the microphone down?
To speak to this issue?
Can you just pull the microphone down to you a little?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. And if you could say your name for the record.
Good evening to the board and all the people that are here. I think that
we need your name. We need your name for the record.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Pat Collins. I'm a resident of Montauk. I'm sorry that I have to come in this condition, but it is what it is. All right. I see that what you're trying to do is preserve the character of the community, which I'm all for. But I think that the a community consensus, when you have 5.5 different entities within the town of East Hampton, is rather broad in its scope. And I really am not aware of, and I read everything, of where the community consensus came from, what generated this back in 2023, who wanted the changes to the gross floor area for in relation to the size of your lot. I understood that it was the monster building type of thing, but now this is affecting smaller parcels, and that, you know, is good as well. But I think that you don't want to make changes that are too draconian, that you had changes that were just done about 8 years ago. You want to take into effect that when people come to you about their particular area, it's a very individual thing. And I know that you have studied this at length, but I still have questions about what triggered the need for this, all this work that you've all, particularly you, put into this, and how it affects the different hamlets and villages. We are not all actually uniform. I'm from Montauk. You had people here from Wainscott. You have people from Springs. And the character of each of those communities is different, even though we live in one town. And it's a beautiful town. And I'm glad that you do all the work. And I appreciate the time to speak to you and to my fellow residents. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Larry. And folks, there are 2 seats that are empty up here. I know there's folks sitting on the floor.
And if there's a seat, an empty seat next to you, maybe you could just raise your hand so folks would know that.
I just want to make sure people can get through aisles and. Okay.
We need a bigger room.
Larry.
Hi, my name is Larry Kane. Feel like I've spent almost as much time in this room over the last 2.5 years as you guys. I'd like to thank you all for taking this on. As I said 2.5 years ago, this is a very difficult issue. It affects everyone in this room, everyone in your town. The first thing I'd like to say is about 1.5 years ago, I came up with a plan, which I call a compromise. Came up with the idea of 8 plus 1,600. 2017, you went from 12% plus 1,600 to 10% plus 1,600. As you know, as numbers get smaller, they become more significant. To go from 10 to 8 is a big jump. And so what we had is a compromise that we came to you guys with about 1.5 years ago. Compromise is something we could use a lot more of in our government these days. Everyone's over here or over here. We sat here with a group of 20 people one day. I called it our kumbaya moment. Let's all come together. 8 plus 16. If years from now, a couple of years, next year you decide that's not enough, it's an easy number. You just cross it out, you revise it. We then sat here 1 year later. We sat to listen to Jeremy. Jeremy showed pictures of about 6 houses. We all agreed we did not like the pictures of what we saw. Came together. I think there were 12 new proposals on the table. Worked together, passed 11 of them. As of March 1st, those are all in effect. But now we're at the point where I think we're trying to go too far, or people are trying to go too far. Listening to your own planning board picked by you guys the other night, I think we had 1 out of 7 for this proposal, 3 who were wishy-washy, and 3 who were adamantly against it. This is your own planning board. Then, as we look at issues that I've listened to over the last year here, we've talked about affordability. I don't think whether we go 715 or 816, that affects affordability at all. I listened to a program on Airbnb. Whether houses are renting for 55, 85, 110,000 a week, this doesn't have anything to do with 715 versus 816. I then called code enforcement. I found out I could rent my own personal house, I think up to 18 times a year, as long as I do it for more than 14 days. Again, affordability is a problem, Airbnb is a problem, clean water is a problem. I put $85,000 septic systems in my house. I know some of the people sitting in the crowd here might live on Sammy's Beach with a septic system the size of this podium. And so if we want to clean up the water, lots of ways to clean up the water. Garbage. I listen to people say, these houses are big, no one stays in them. Are they big and produce a lot of garbage, or are they maybe the trucks I see at the dump with 30 cans of garbage come from the smaller houses? There are two sides to every story. I think everyone's coming to the side where we all love our town. We want clean water. We want clean trails. We want all of these things. Let's get compromise, compromise, compromise. Our government needs it right now. Please, I'd love to see it from you guys. Thank you.
Again, a show of hands. Jonathan?
Shirt's coming off. What? Jacket's coming off.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. I don't have anything prepared to say.
Yeah.
My name is Darius Naritono. I am now a real estate agent, so I guess I'm one of the people, the villains here, although I've only been a real estate agent for 10 years. In my mid-50s, I became a real estate agent. I've had 3 other careers here. I'm also an East Hampton Lion, and I'm a member of a board member of the food pantry right behind here for a long time. I have 2 children that were born here. I wasn't born here. I was born in the city. I moved here in 1982 when I was 19 years old. I came here. I started out living in an unfinished basement because I couldn't afford anything else. I rented, and eventually I bought a piece of property, a half an acre, for $50,000. Imagine that, $50,000. And I could hardly afford it at that time. When I built my house and interest rates finally dropped down to, I think it was 8.25%, I could afford to buy groceries again. I'm not in that situation anymore. I have multiple properties now. I was able to do that in my life. I have 2 children that can't afford to live here. They both graduated high school here, and they can't afford to live here at the moment. My business is pretty much selling small houses to young families. Strange that that's what my niche became, but it is what my niche is. To think that some of the homes that I'm selling to people are going to have these restrictions on them now when they're buying them on a shoestring budget with the idea that it's one day they're going to be able to have it fit the size of the family that they want to grow. It's really, I think it's unfair. And the gentleman back here who said that this should go to a vote to all of East Hampton, I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak.
We're going to go back to the phone and take a couple of callers on the phone. Matthew, please.
Okay. All right, unmuting caller number 9817.
Good evening. This is Marcy Wilkov Waterman, a full-time resident of Montauk. I'm speaking in support of any and all amendments to the zoning code that will have an impact, no matter how small, on the current trend of oversized houses that are straining our town's infrastructure and making our wonderful East Hampton increasingly unlivable for all. I fear that even the proposals now on the table may be too little, too late. I want to commend the town board for creating the zoning code working group and the fine work of particularly Kate and Jane, whom I know, but the fine work that's been done over the nearly 2 years. They've conducted a thorough study, developed substantial evidence to drive thoughtful recommendations, one of which is to change the GFA formula to 7% plus 1,300 square feet. I think that change is extremely generous given the abuses that we currently see everywhere around us, including right next door to my very own house here in Montauk. I sympathize with the young families who would like room to grow, and I can't believe that there's not a solution that would suit both the oversized houses and the young people who want to expand their houses. There must be a compromise, but I don't think that a compromise should be done by splitting the baby without data and evidence. So I strongly support 7% plus 1,300 square feet to mitigate the damage that's already been done by overdevelopment, greed, and monster houses like the one next door to me that have pushed our community past carrying capacity and overburden our infrastructure and environment. These recommendations from the working group are merely a first step, and I urge the town board to keep going and to try harder. Please take action without delay and at a minimum enact the 7% plus 1,300 square feet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcy. Matthew, if you could put another caller through.
Sure. I'm muting phone number ending in 6412.
Good evening, Town Board. It's Rona Klopman from Amagansett. I live in Beach Hampton, where there are many quarter-acre lots of which I am one resident for 37 years. I've seen a lot of changes in my community. When I come home at night, I think my light is the only light that's on in the wintertime. Actually, there's very few homes that are here all year round. And I strongly support the 7% and 1,300 square foot formula. I think it's time for this board to make a definite decision. I was at the planning board meeting on last Wednesday, and I watched the differences of opinion. You are going to have many diverse opinions among the community because of the complexity of the issue, but I think it's very important that the board takes a final stand. You have worked very hard on this with the committee and prestigious members of the board and of the town to make a decision, and I think it's going to take a lot of guts to do it, but I think you have to make a decision once and for all that this community deserves more than it's been getting with the McMansions surrounding all the little acreage. And I do hope that you support the 7% and 1,300 in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Rona. Matthew, we'll take one more call and then come back to the room.
Okay, unmuting phone number ending 0428.
Yes, Jeffrey Palermo calling, Montauk part-time resident. I bought my house back about 2007. It's a little less than half an acre. I don't know the exact square footage of my house, but it's much less than what we've been talking about. And I have plenty of room for myself, my wife, and my family, my kids when they were growing up and coming home from college with their friends. Plenty of room for son-in-laws and grandchildren. So I really don't buy this. We don't have a big enough house to house, all the things I want to do. I find that kind of hard to believe, especially as a member of the baby boomers. When I was growing up, the average family size, it wasn't unusual for families to have 5 or 6 kids. And the houses were much smaller back then. And people got along fine. So I don't buy this argument on that. I also could see the infrastructure is crumbling all around us, whether it's in Montauk or East Hampton. The roads are in terrible shape. Trucks are back and forth. The shoreline and the beaches are being destroyed every winter by storms. We have to put a limit to the overbuilding. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, we're going to come back to the room in the back. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Telly Carusos. I've been a resident here for most of my life, and I have 3 kids. And I just I kind of want to go back to what Janice was saying. I think that this needs to be a little bit more nuanced. This seems like kind of a blanket solution for something that's probably the discussion could be opened up a bit more. I was looking for where I was going with this because I was here a while back and spoke and kind of all over the place. But right now, I think, besides a few outliers, any more restrictions will devastate the majority of people who live in smaller lots that more than likely represent their largest asset. The proposed is meant to keep the town focused on its initiative to preserve history or forests or aquifer. This is where I get hung up about this whole thing of how big is a house from the last time I was here. A monster house in a neighborhood of monster houses behind monster hedges does not change the character. And what about talking about other options if the goal here is to, preserve character? What if we started looking at, for example, solar's getting better? Some people were talking about these houses that the last woman on the phone, there's nobody home. What if some of these houses we started talking about generating energy or from the house while you're not there? What if a 10,000 square foot house has a grass roof on it that, I'm going all over the place again, but I think we need to open up the conversation beyond just 7% plus 1,300 or 10% plus 1,600 to think about things that, not just all or none for everybody, because there's people out here that live on quarter-acre lots, fifth of an acre lots, tenth of an acre lots. What these numbers add like a drastic change for those people. That's all I have to say, I guess.
Thank you, Terry. Yes.
Hi, I'm Randy Ball, and I did not plan to speak at all, but I do want to back up Larry and Telly for who just spoke right now and saying that so focused on size, but it really is about the environment. And I think that Larry was really correct. And when we're beating down the developers and architects, it's really not about size. I mean, size is an aesthetic, and I understand if people don't like the aesthetics that are being built next to them. I mean, that's just a fact of life. We don't always get to choose what the look of what's around us is, right? But we do have the choice of, what to build environmentally with our tools, with our products. So I do think that taking more of an environmental look at building is more important than size. And I think that most of you kind of would agree with that versus, per the septic changes, right? So that was a really good step in the right direction. And there's more stuff like the solar, the building materials. We want to make sure now that we're protected over fires after everything that's going on. Like the fires is something that we really should be talking about. So I would also like to say that while we're beating up the industry, also we are the people who are selling these homes to the people who are paying a lot of money into the Peconic Land Trust Fund, right, with their purchases. And the Peconic Land Trust Fund has been set up to protect our environments. And I think that that's something that should also be looked into. It's just not the builders. It's where is that money from the Peconic Land Trust going to protect our environment? And how do we just environmentally grow and take advantage of that?
Thank you, Randy. Over here, Paul. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, good evening. I'm Paul Munoz, and I'm here as the chair of the East Hampton Sustainability Committee. Our committee was just reestablished this year to advance sustainability principles and advise on environmental changes facing our community. We have also been tasked with promoting net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040 and reducing waste and overconsumption. And keyword overconsumption, because that has to do a lot with the big houses we're talking about. So I'm here to speak on our support for support and unanimous recommendation for the town board to adopt the December 7th, 2024 formal proposal of the working group to revise and rebalance the maximum gross floor area allowance to 7+13. Our full recommendation is included in a submission for record that was submitted earlier today. So I urge the town board to take a look at that. The existing maximum GFA allowance formula of 10+16 has enabled the extreme development across all parcel sizes and degradation of natural resources, neighborhood character, affordability, and threatens the sustainability of our town. These supersizing development trends are not compatible with the East Hampton Comprehensive Plan, and the 7+13 proposal that we support is the minimum change necessary to the maximum GFA allowance to just now begin to address environmental and community challenges and sustainability in a way that starts to align with the goals, objectives, and priorities of the comprehensive plan. Large houses consume more resources and energy, have bigger carbon footprints, higher greenhouse gas emissions than houses of smaller and more moderate size. Larger houses have more negative impact on the land and contribute more to water quality, deterioration, habitat loss, and infrastructure strain. In 2022, there was a global status report for building and construction, and it stated that built environment accounts for 37% of global CO2 emissions, and locally, that has the single biggest impact on our sustainability. Here in East Hampton, we see that firsthand with overdevelopment threatening affordability for full-time residents and our seasonal workforce. In conclusion, I'd just like to remind everyone that a prior town board attempted to follow through on making changes they proposed and knew necessary, but was pressured by development and real estate interests. We urge this town board to not make that same mistake. The time is now. Doing less than now, as in the 7+15 in the public hearing notice, undermines our built environment and its compatibility with ecological environmental imperatives. For each 100 square foot increase you make, the formula's efficacy to shift the curve and address the threats decreases meaningfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like? Gloria?
I think Katie Casey was
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. I'm Gloria Frazee. I am here in East Hampton. I've been thinking about the coming generations, which is what's really important here besides what we do. And as many of you know, I, along with other rewilders on Long Island, spend a lot of our time working with community members and especially young people, empowering them to take care of our environment and to protect what our resources and to rewild, to reinvigorate what we have. Just when I think I'm leading by example and teaching them, they show me how much they care about our environment. This past summer, we had 20 high school interns who did more than 1,200 hours of community service. It's for them that we need to pass a reduction in GFA. And it's so important. Thinking about previous generations, my home was built in 1924. It was home to the Gale family, parents, and their 4 children. It's 1,750 square feet. It's got a living room, dining room, kitchen, office, den, 2 bathrooms, 4 bedrooms. And what we haven't really talked about is a great yard. It's got a flower garden, a vegetable garden, space for the Thanksgiving football game. Not that I play football, but have hosted and had my in-laws, niece and her family, nephew and his family with 1 plus 2 children each. And they're fishermen, so we've gone fly fishing, fly casting in the side yard. There is room for that. So the outdoor space on our lot is also a space. Looking even further back, a century or so, there is the Irish phrase, blessing, may you have enough. May you have enough. What is enough? There is something called the hedonic treadmill. The more you get, the more you want. Oh, just an extra bedroom. Oh, just an extra space for that. Just an extra, it's never enough. And I think we need to get off that hedonic treadmill. We need to look at what is enough. How are we looking at the space, not just inside our home, but outside our home? When I grew up, my mother would say, go outside and play. It wasn't go to the playroom and play with all of your stuff. Like, oh, here's a magnifying glass. Go look at what's happening in the grass. Go look at what's flying around. Here's a pair of binoculars. Check out the birds. This is what we need to preserve for future generations. We need to lead by example.
Thank you, Gloria. We're gonna go to the lines. There's just 2 people on the line. Matthew, if you could put the next 2 callers through.
Okay, great. Unmuting caller, last 4 digits, 3524.
Hello?
You're on the line.
We can hear you.
Hello? Oh, great. Hi, this is Kathy Cunningham calling. Sorry not to be able to be there in person tonight, but not 100%. And I'm speaking this evening as a private citizen in support of this effort. I really want to tip my hat to Deputy Supervisor Rogers for leading this effort and thank the town board for the opportunity for comment. It was my great honor and privilege to serve our town for 7 years on the planning board, 3 as vice chair and another 3 on the ARB, 2 as chair. And during that time, my colleagues and I saw not only an increase in the dimensional size of homes, but a huge increase in the intensification of use of properties that came before us, including lots of accessory buildings, structures, and amenities. And I realize there are a number of industries that fear this proposal, and I understand their point of view. However, the goal of reducing house size and controlling massing has a long history in the town, memorialized in our comp plan and town code, which requires buildings to be compatible with the historic and neighborhood character of a particular hamlet or district. And I have to say, every time a limit on house size, which equates to profit, is introduced, the real estate and construction industries cry out that it will damage those industries irreparably. We heard it with the Community Preservation Fund program, among other environmental initiatives, including vital water quality improvement projects requiring upgraded septic systems, as well as the last time the town board tried to sensibly limit house size. And the evidence is clear. It makes no difference whatsoever. Prices for homes and land are at an all-time high, and none of the previous regulations made a dent in anyone's profits, period. The town wisely declared itself a climate-smart community, adopting a climate action plan in 2017, acknowledging how vulnerable our coastal community is to those impacts, particularly sea level rise. House size reduction regulations align with those goals as well. Reducing house size reduces carbon emissions, a win-win for our community. We have a unique opportunity at this moment to make a real contribution to the future of this remarkable place and for the future of our children and grandchildren. I would like to be able to look at my grandchildren in the eye and say, in all honesty, I did everything I possibly could to make it better. That opportunity is before this board now. More than any period in our history, now is the time to make consequential change. Please, hew to our comprehensive plan. Strengthen the code to limit house sizes to 7% of lot size plus 1,300 square feet. Please keep the hearing open for more public comment. Show us that democratic government can work. At this time, when the national conversation makes so little sense, please recognize how important this is. Please enact the vision of our comp plan and give us faith that government works. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. You could put the last caller through, Matt.
Okay, phone number ending in 4233. I'm muting.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Bob Lenihan, and I'm a registered architect. Born and raised in Montauk, grew up in a Carl Fisher house. No heat on the second floor, that's where my bedroom was. Where right now I can appreciate what the town is doing right now in trying to bring down the gross floor area, but I don't believe you can do a solid brushstroke straight across the board on all properties throughout the entire town. Over the past 10 years, I have worked extensively in Montauk, and most of the properties I work on are 10,000 square feet. And a lot of the properties I've worked on have required for me to use the 16-16 rule. Some of those properties are around 7,200 square feet. If I were to use today's building standards of 10 and 16, I could get a 2,300 square foot house on that property. If I go on 7 and 13, I'd have an 1,800 square foot house on that property, where I'm losing 500 square feet. I appreciate the size changes in housing, but I don't know if we can do a straight brushstroke right across the board. I think you have to look at sizes of properties. I know Montauk, born and raised there. I understand the size of the lots out there. And there are not many what they consider large acreage lots out there. So I thank you very much for your time and have a good evening.
We have one more caller on the line. I just want to make sure that they had a chance to make comments. They might not have.
Sorry, Matt, we couldn't hear you. Say that again, please.
There's one caller that's been hanging around. I have the number crossed off, but they might not have had a chance. They might have,
All right.
So I'm going to put them through.
Okay. Thank you.
Caller number ending in 0428. I'm going to unmute you.
No, I spoke earlier, 0428. Jeffrey Palermo, Montauk. I just want to add one quick thing. The people we're going to scare away are the people who have the smaller size lot homes in these towns. These are the people who drive the ambulance as a volunteer to take it to the hospital. These are the people who work in the fire department as volunteers to put the fires out when there's an emergency. These are the people who are nurses. These are the people who own small businesses in town. These are the people who wait on the tables during the summer season. These are the people we're going to lose. And if we're not careful with this and the environment, one day no one's going to want to come out here. It's the people with these mega mansions. God forbid, if there's a bad hurricane, they'll just buy another piece of property elsewhere and build another huge house and just leave the place in ruins. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
That's it for the callers.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you. It's a long night. We're not done yet, but
it's okay. That's what we're here for.
I am Katie Casey. I live in the Freetown area, East Hampton North. And I'm just speaking as a private citizen, though I know a little something about the housing market here. I want to say there are no villains in this discussion. There are no bad guys. There are different interests. And I appreciate the civil discourse. The people here, we are in a little bit of a bubble. And I want to acknowledge those people that are not in the room. 20% of this town are essentially my clients in one form or another at one time or another. All things are relative. We talk about assets and investments and maximizing and fiduciaries and LLCs. I would venture to guess that everybody in this room owns property. I might be wrong, but a lot of people don't own property. And, you know, again, all things are relative. It doesn't matter how long I've been here, when I bought my house, where I went to school. If we're here speaking, we care about the town. I only recognize one person here who I know is born and bred, but, you know, so I think in this discussion, that doesn't matter. I have a very modest home. It was 850 square feet. I raised 2 teenagers in that house. It can be done. I'm on 0.4 acre. As my you know, as my family grew, as the kids got older, my income grew also, and I was fortunate enough to be able to renovate my little tear down. So it's 3 times the size now as it was when I bought it in the 90s. I did it incrementally. It's plenty big. I think this issue of needs versus wants, sometimes it turns into what I would consider a dog whistle. Modern families, or, you know, what people need is, again, it's relative. If you can't get happy in a 6,000 square foot house, you are not going to be happy in an 8,000 square foot house. I'm sorry. It's just for those that are occupied. The other, you know, the other discussion is investments and wanting to maximize a lot. So money is always going to pull in one direction, and the community is pulling in another direction, and you as our representatives are tasked with making the decision and standing, you know, standing up, declaring it, and owning it. You empowered a group of very smart people to give you recommendations. I agree, 7%, 1,300 square feet is more than enough. And the last thing I'll say, Gloria, my house is also 100 years old this year. And instead of an Irish invocation, I will give you a Greek invocation. Evdaimonia is a word specific to the Greek language that means enough. This is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. You back there? Welcome, Scott.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Scott Bludorn. I live on the East Hampton side of Sag Harbor. Born and raised here, and witnessed, you know, throughout my life, certainly a changing character of the entire town. And not always in a great way. There's always positives and there's always negatives, I think, to development and what that can do for the community. As a community member myself, I feel like it is incumbent on the town to consider people's needs and wants, and I think there's always a balance with that. But I do absolutely support the idea of their 7% plus 1,300 square feet. I think it makes sense. It's common sense for reasonable living. And I come from a point of view of sustainability and always the natural environment. I kind of always put it first and foremost in my thinking. And I think that more people need to understand that that is our true asset on the east end of Long Island. We are a natural community. We take pride in our environment, and I think that is, to me, the most important thing. So when we have clear cutting of trees that create these absolutely unnecessarily large houses, I think everyone is actually a net loser in that effect. So I think that it's really important that we do recognize that as a community with enough input, and I commend what you've done in exploring the changing of the code. So I appreciate your efforts, and I just want to say I think you should go forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Right in the back, yeah. Welcome.
Hello there. My name is Christina Parlato. Originally, I came here without the intention of speaking, but I feel that perhaps our voice isn't really represented in this room, so I'd like to join. I'm here as, I guess, the villain. I'm a builder, a developer, but I'm also a 10-year resident of East Hampton. My husband and I are, and his father was also a builder here and around prior to that as well. So part of me speaking is just to give a human face to this industry. You know, imagine being told your life's work is greedy or villainous. It's difficult to hear. And actually, I'm a creative. I take a lot of pride in the architecture and the buildings that we do. And I feel like what we built here in this community are homes that I hope to see here in 100 years. I've seen examples of overdevelopment, of bad construction, of monstrous McMansions, but I think there's other ways to address those nuances. Having an architectural review board, making sure that, you know, sight lines are protected for neighbors, being environmentally conscious of clearing, of drainage. All these things are important and things that we're in favor of. Just wrote down a couple remarks. So, as I mentioned, we're year-round residents here. Our friends attend schools here. The trades we work with are part of this community and actually, you know, create their entire livings based on the industry that my husband and I are in. Our clients that come here, if they're only part-time residents, are also contributing towards this community, have paid taxes, have invested in all the restaurants, the shops, the just pure enjoyment, the memories that come with being a seasonal resident here can't be really denied. And I'm also mindful in a resort community, there's a tension between a year-round resident and a seasonal resident. I mean, as a year-round resident, I appreciate the peace and quiet and tranquility that we have right now. And I know soon we'll kind of be overrun. But at the same time, I think this proposed change doesn't really address that topic. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christina. Would anyone else like to address? Kat? The state, want to join you?
Good evening. My name's Catherine Deline Weil. I am a resident here. I have been here since I was 5 years old. I've enjoyed hearing all the different perspectives here tonight, and everybody has a different point of view on this. I'm an architect, so I deal with the zoning code intimately every single day. I do feel this is a little aggressive, especially as people are speaking about these smaller lots. I do think that the sort of backbone of this community has been villainized a little bit here tonight. The architects, the surveyors, the builders. There's so many people in this community that rely on the building industry. We raise our children here. And I think Larry Kane had an interesting perspective as a compromise between the 7% plus 1,300, 8% plus 1,600. To me, that sounds like a pretty fair compromise in what we're discussing. I'm a little nervous in seeing the pendulum swing very far in this very conservative direction. You know, my own personal story, one of my goals out here is to design and build my own house. And there's a ton of restrictions in East Hampton. People have brought up clear cutting of trees. There's clearing restrictions on every property. Some of these calculations about how big a house is, 1 story versus 2 story, they're checked by building coverage. Groundwater, there's so many wonderful things that have been implemented in the town, the alternative wastewater for new construction, managing all of the runoff on your site. You have to do that if you're doing a new house. Our town has one of the most progressive energy codes in the country. And I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but I'm proud of that, being a professional in this town and designing to those codes. With every single code change that does happen, there are costs involved, there's permitting, there's different agencies you have to address. And my selfish goal of wanting to one day build a house that I design becomes a further reach. Hopefully one day I can do it, but the costs that go with that, every change that happens, there's money that goes to it to put the solar panels on a house to meet the energy requirements. I know that some sort of change is going to happen. I just ask you guys to be respectful of the time that goes into designing these houses. We have projects that it takes about a year to get to the point of submitting to a building permit with the various agencies, DECs, zoning boards, energy consultants, and just be mindful of the time and energy that we take in our profession and getting these things built. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kat. Would anyone else like to address the board? John? Welcome, John.
Hello, my name is John Grant. I'm from Springs. So I've known almost all of you for many years. Some are friends since high school, family friends. Some of you are newer friends and clients of mine, maybe former clients tomorrow. We'll see. Some of you had the pleasure working with in various capacities, including governance and different committees. So it's shocking to me that this board is considering a nearly 30% reduction in the house size for half-acre lots from the 2016 code. 30%. And for a 2-acre lot, it's a 37% reduction from the 2016 code. So in light of these proposed extreme reductions, I'm going to read you a definition of what I believe is occurring on this board, especially in relation to this issue. Groupthink. Groupthink is a phenomenon that occurs when a group of well-intentioned people makes non-optimal decisions spurred by the urge to conform, or the belief that dissent is discouraged or difficult. The premature consensus that is characteristic of groupthink may be fueled by a particular agenda, or it may be due to group members valuing harmony and coherence above critical thought. So at the December 5th meeting, I believe there was some discussion. David, you felt that the 10,000 square foot cap was going too far. Mr. Flight, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet. That's neither the one person I don't know.
Steps without my office, would love to.
You had a concern that the options having a staircase that's parallel to the house instead of perpendicular would be unnecessarily harsh. But now we're slashing house size nearly 30% and 37% respectively from the 2016 code. So I would think that that is harsh.
516. Siri.
The proposed reduction is obviously capricious, and it's evidence that you have a solution looking for a problem. At the December 5th meeting, the supervisor stated that we've just closed the loopholes in the zoning code. So we've made a lot of impactful changes already. So I'm asking, I'm begging, that the board takes a pause and allow the substantial changes that have already been made to take effect and evaluate their impact. I'm asking the board to be present, not vote present. I'm asking the board to think, not group think. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Matthew, if you want to let that caller
Sure. Okay, I'm muting caller phone number ending in 3188.
Hi, am I on?
Yes.
Okay, hi, this is Liz Miller. I am a resident of Springs. I have lived here my whole life. I grew up out here. I'm as local as they come. And I'm watching this and I'm getting so frustrated because I feel like people are just missing an entire group of individuals out here. Like, you know, I heard the woman say that if you live in 6,000 square feet, you won't be happy in 8,000. 100%. I agree with that. Of course that is the case. We're not trying to build 6,000 square foot houses. We don't have lots that allow that. We have tiny little lots that have tiny little homes, and we need to be able to make them livable. This makes it nearly impossible. I don't want to be a broken record. I've said everything already. This will push people like me out. This will push out people who are young and who want to have families out here, and the only thing that is left for us to buy are small houses on small lots. And if this passes, it inhibits what we can do so much. I also don't understand the sticking point with the garage thing and the basement thing. Some people don't want that. So let them use that space for livable space. It just seems like my voice and people who are with me on this issue aren't really being heard. It feels like everyone's focusing on the mansions, the mansions, the mansions. We don't want the mansions either. We're fine with that. Go after them. But there's got to be some sort of solution that leaves us alone or just adjusts it a little bit to make it more workable for us. There are already a lot of rules in place. There's already so many things that we're not allowed to do or have to conform to this or do it this way. We're trying to make it work out here. Don't pass something else that makes it even harder for us. That's really all I have to say.
Would anyone else like to address the board? Paul? Welcome, Paul.
Hello, my name is Paul Massey. I'll try not to be repetitive, but I do know a bit about the zoning code, and I'd like to speak more from a personal perspective. So my wife and I built a home in East Hampton where we've raised our 3 children. Our children went through the school system, and 2 of them are now in college. Our last is in high school. Our property is just shy of a ½ acre, and our home is approximately 3,000 square feet. While we did not max out the current allowable square footage, we did use every square inch while raising our children. Just as some of our children are moving out to go to college, we now have our nephew living with us. He's employed at a local business and is facing the realities that there's nowhere to live. That's affordable. While I'm sure he enjoys our company, he would rather find his own place. We hope that he's able to stay with us for as long as he can until he can save enough money for his own accommodations. My fear, though, is just like many other young graduates, and I've heard this time and time again, they'll give up and move to other communities. This is not good for our community. To have an unbalanced demographic, many children who grew up in East Hampton that move back, they do live with their parents. And I'm afraid with these proposed zoning changes, it'll make it difficult or prohibitive. And these are core residents that we want to live out here. If the current GFA formula is enacted, our house would have had 1 less bedroom. And I don't think we would have been able to accommodate our extended family, which support the community. Well, mostly I'm referencing smaller lots. And I think because it applies to our friends in the community. I'm not saying I oppose a reduction, and I think there could be a solution, but it's not a blanket GFA formula because this adversely affects smaller lots rather than the larger lots. Many of the local residents who are working and raising their families live on these smaller properties. And I feel strongly if a change is made to the GFA zoning, it should be done on a sliding scale, depending on the property size, or creating zoning districts with different GFA regulations. This method is already being used in the town to determine other zoning parameters. We need the diversity in the demographics of the people living here to be a healthy community. And I hope that you take this under consideration. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Would anyone else like to speak? Aaron?
Good evening. I'll be brief. Aaron Weil. I've heard it called a rebalancing, and I respect the need to address the public outcry. Something needs to be done. There needs to be a compromise reached, but I don't feel that 30% is a compromise. That's a big ask. That's a big change. In a time of massive government changes, let's look at incremental changes, please. Even at the 7% and 1,500 square feet, that would be a 16% reduction on a quarter acre, a 20% reduction on a half acre, 24% reduction on a full acre. That's a big change, and especially when it affects the value of people's homes and their properties. So I understand the need to do something, but I hope for a more incremental change as opposed to something this aggressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. No, I'm sorry. Pat, I'm sorry. Everybody speaks once. We're going to see if
Oh, I
there's.
didn't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's okay.
All right.
Okay. Anyone else like to address the board?
Phones are on.
Okay.
Motion to close.
Check the phone.
Matthew, is there anyone else on the line?
No, we have no additional callers.
I'll just say.
Okay.
I remove my motion.
My name is Matt Burns. I live at 41 Harborview Lane in Springs, and I'm a lifelong resident here. I'm in opposition to the proposal, or not fully. I just think there should be some sliding scale. I'm on a 0.24 acre lot, and I think the proposal would drastically affect my ability to expand or build new. I love the character of my house, and honestly, I would like to keep it. But my wife and I just had a baby. She's 6 months old. It's 1,100 square feet, and the only reason we really bought this place was because what we could afford at the time. And I think that's the same situation for a lot of locals. Our goal here is to stay here. We grew up here and we love our community. But when we buy these small houses, the end goal is to expand, because generally it's hard to live in these older homes. This reduction seems like it's excessive for the smaller homeowners. It seems the original target was for the very large McMansions and intended to curb that excess. Our small lots don't allow for the excess that you're trying to curb. I also think, this reduction, it's going to make these bigger homes, they're going to be worth a lot more money. And I think it's going to, I feel like there's a lot of talks about affordability. I think that's going to make things more expensive. I don't think lots under half an acre should have to build less than what they currently are. And I hope you consider that. Thanks.
Thank you. We just got another caller on the line. Matthew, if you want to put them through, please.
Okay. Unmuting caller with number ending in 0976.
Good evening. My name is Lori Deline. My husband and I live in the Springs. Good evening, Supervisor Burke Gonzalez and board members. When we arrived in East Hampton over 40 years ago in our young 20s, we were fortunate to be able to live and work here, as well as raise our growing family. Being native Long Islanders, we weren't moving to the Hamptons, we were just moving to the eastern end of Long Island, where the quality of life was exceptional, a bit less expensive in those days, and the natural beauty had captured us since our youth. But of course, we all know that as time moved on, our East End community has experienced extraordinary changes, which has affected most all of our lives in one way or another, but certainly has impacted our real estate values. Many of our younger community members, whether they are single, a couple, or a young family, are absolutely struggling to stay on our beautiful East End. We have a tight-knit community who are invested in the East End life. These are those who grew up here or married someone who did and wouldn't think of leaving. They are working in businesses that contribute to the rhythm of our East End life or are in a supporting role to provide all that is necessary for our successful continuing progress as a community. I would respectfully ask that you weigh the scales and keep in balance and perspective the choice between preserving the land as we have it or preserving the people we have. We need these people to stay. They are the people that are continuing to strive to live here and are already committed. They are invested in the lifestyle and they are already sacrificing to stay, whether it is with high rent, living with a relative, or struggling to meet all the criteria and monetary burden necessary to build or renovate. These are good citizens and will continue to contribute and be a positive force for the future of our community. This is our next generation. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, we're going to go one more time. Anyone else in the room like to address the board?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming out. We'll take a couple-minute break. Chances are you're not going to want to stay for the next 5 public hearings.
Take care. Hi, good to see you. Lisa. This is my daughter. I dragged her out. She's at that Girl Scouts. She was the other day. Press isn't even staying for the other hearings?
Yeah.
They're calling
Come
them?
on, guys.
Two. Thank you, Tony. The press is leaving?
We have more hearings,
We have 5
press.
more hearings.
Something big could break.
Penny,
Something big
My
could
guy,
break in our
Chauncey.
next hearing.
there he is. There he is as a young puppy.
Okay,
I'll text you, Chris, if it's a big one.
And Penny's great.
take care.
She's coming back soon, though, I hear.
Okay,
Let's do this.
yes.
Well, they're
No, I'm sorry, Tony? Tony, we're continuing our meeting.
We're live on the
Sorry,
mic.
Carol, if you could please read the second meeting notice.
My grandchildren are 27 and 24. All right.
Notice hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Thursday, March 6th at 6 p.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard to consider comments of all people with regard to the amendment of Chapter 255 zoning of the East Hampton Town Code in order to amend sections 255-141D, 255-141M, 1K13, and 255-730H, an abstract of which follows. A local law amending Chapter 255-141D, unacceptable applications for personal wireless service facilities. 1, an application for site plan review and/or special permit for a personal wireless service facility may or may not be accepted by the building inspector, planning director, or any other representative of the town of East Hampton if the applicant owns any other use, structure, or facility in the town of East Hampton that has not received proper certificates of occupancy and/or building permits in accordance with this chapter. D, the owner of the property or the owner of the structure to which the personal wireless service facility is proposed for attached has not received proper certificates of occupancy for building permits in accordance with this chapter for any other property or structure of which one or more personal wireless service facilities is lawfully or unlawfully attached. Acceptance of such application shall be determined by the building inspector, planning director, or any other representative of the town of East Hampton by the applicant's proof of path of compliance to correct any and all lack of certificates of occupancy, building permits, and/or payments of outstanding tax arrears. B, an applicant denied submission for such application may appeal such denial to the Zoning Board of Appeals within 30 days of such denial. A local law amending Chapter 255, 141M, 1K13, activities requiring architectural review board review. The planning board shall submit Tier 3 applications for site plans for personal wireless service facilities to the Architectural Review Board. A local law amending Chapter 255, 730H, personal wireless service facilities. The planning board shall submit Tier 3 applications for site plans for personal wireless service facilities to the Architectural Review Board. The full text of the local law is available for inspection at the office of the town clerk, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, during regular business hours.
Thank you, Carol. Since we have no one in the room, I'm going to turn to Matthew. Is there anyone on the line for this public hearing?
We have no callers on the line.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Carol, if you could please read the third meeting notice.
Please take notice that the town board hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on March 6th at 6 PM or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard at the East Hampton Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled, a local law providing for the amendment of Chapter 240 Vehicles and Traffic, Section 27.2 Paid Parking of the Town Code of the Town of East Hampton to expand provisions for paid parking within the town to the Kirk Park Beach parking lot in Montauk, Atlantic Avenue Beach parking lot in Amagansett, and designated areas along South Emerson Avenue in Montauk.
Thank you, Carol. Matthew, is there anyone on the line?
We have no callers.
Motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Carol, if you could please read the fourth meeting notice.
Notice is hereby given the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Thursday, March 16th at 6 PM or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard for the purpose of considering a proposed contract with the Amagansett Fire District for fire protection and emergency ambulance service to be furnished by the Amagansett Fire District to the town of East Hampton for the Promised Land Fire Protection District for the calendar year 2025 upon the following general terms. The Amagansett Fire District shall answer and attend all calls in said Promised Land Fire Protection District for fire protection and emergency service in the case of accidents, calamities, and other emergencies, and general ambulance service for the Promised Land Protection District. For such services during the 12-month period, the Amagansett Fire District shall pay the sum of $590,766.44 for 2025, payable on or before March 1st, 2025.
Thank you. Matthew, is there anyone on the line?
We have no callers.
Motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Carol, if you could read the fifth meeting notice, please.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247, the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on March 6th at 6 PM or as soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, to concerning the following grant of scenic and conservation easement to the town of East Hampton. The grantor is Joe Ryan and James C. Kushner. It's a scenic and conservation easement dated January 11th at 3 Hedges Avenue in East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 300, 141, 332.1, URP number 65, and UR map EH7. The reviewing agency is the town board.
Matthew?
We have no callers.
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carol, if you could please read the last meeting notice.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247, the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Thursday, March 6th, at 6 p.m., or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard concerning the filing grant of scenic and conservation easement to the Town of East Hampton. The grantor is 22 Shore Road, LLC. It's a scenic and conservation easement dated December 8th of 24. The location is 22 Shore Road, Narragansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300, 131.87, and the reviewing agency is the ZBA.
Matthew, is there anyone on the line?
We have no callers.
Motion to close?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that wraps up our public hearings for this evening. We now move on to public portion. As I said, the room has cleared from a standing room only earlier for the first hearing. Matthew, is there anyone on the line for the public portion?
We have no callers for the public portion.
Okay, so we're going to move now to resolutions. Councilmember Flight, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. First resolution for tonight is 2025-357. This is a warrant approval for warrant number 3A. We're going to approve claims in the amount of $1,106,304.97 for 2024 payables and $10,202,492.88 for 25 payables, as well as $3,922.94 for 2024 payables and $81,490.99 for 2025 payables.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
358 is a public notice. This is to adopt a fee schedule for the East Hampton Town landfill for 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 359 is a notice to bidders for EH 25008. This is for the supply and delivery of food service, kitchenware items, and miscellaneous foods for March 2025. Bids are available March 13th, 2025, and are due back March 27, 25 at 3 p.m. They're available from the purchasing department. That's it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 360 is to retain FPM Group for landfill monitoring services. FPM Group is hereby retained to perform groundwater and methane monitoring services at the Springs Fireplace Road landfill and the Montauk landfill for 2025, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, at a cost not to exceed $50,475.21 for the Montauk landfill and $49,757.86 for the Springs Fireplace Road landfill.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
361 is for an organic facilities monitoring and reporting. Be it resolved, the FPM Group is hereby retained to provide professional engineering services for the organic facilities monitoring and report proposal at a cost not to exceed $17,545.76.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 362 to amend resolution 2025-345. This is for the Christina Schultz payout. There's a change in the amount owed for health and dental vision, so the final payout will now be $127.25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 363 is to accept a change order for the OpenGov contract for additional software for 2025. Be it resolved that supervisors should accept and execute change order from OpenGov for an additional cost of $7,020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm happy to be able to present Resolution 2025-364. This is a notice of public hearing to amend Chapter 240 Vehicles and Traffic, the East Hampton Town Code, Section 68, Schedule 17, Time Limit Parking, and Section 79, Schedule 29 of Permit Parking. The public hearing for this would be held on March 20th at 6 p.m.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You were good with your Roman numerals.
I like the Olympics. 365, appoint lifeguards to the preseason training for 2025, effective March 1st, 2025. Tanner Smith, Lieutenant Guard, at $29.12.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 366 is appoint part-time recreational employee effective March 6, 2025, LC Nelson Recreation Aid, $17.85.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 367 is a provisional appointment to environmental analyst Adam Thine in the aquaculture department at hourly rate of $35.25 annual salary of $73,330.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 368 is a payment upon retirement for Stanley Bennett. The total gross payout for Mr. Bennett is $75,776.09 as his final payout. I want to thank Mr. Bennett for his decades of service to the town of East Hampton.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Oh, aye. 369 is a payout upon retirement to George Kusanovich. Excuse me. Total gross payout is $42,462 payable to George. And then thank you again for his length of service to the town of East Hampton and recreation.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 370 is payout upon resignation for Richard Williams. The payment amount is $82.40.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 371 as a 2025 budget modification for snow removal, where we're bringing from budget line for some subcontractor costs in the amount of $25,000 and full-time salaries in the amount of $25,000 to the budget line snow removal supplies in the amount of $50,000.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 372, apologize. 372 is to retain Wallbridge surveyors, the amount for proposal dated February 13, 2025 to prepare surveys for properties in underwater lands in Lake Montauk at a cost of $14,400 for the proposal dated on February 13, 2025.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 373 is RFP EH 2013-107 is to terminate and rescind the license for agricultural land at Stony Hill to sand and soil. I do have to make an amendment to this under the financial impact. It is not $35,000. The financial impact is $1,750.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have resolution 374. This is to schedule public hearing, notice of public hearing for a grant of scenic and conservation easement at 419 East Lake Drive, Montauk. The town board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 20th in this matter to concern the following grant of scenic and conservation easement to the town of East Hampton. The grantor is April Taylor. Location is 419 East Lake Drive, Montauk. The reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 375 is to schedule a public hearing for a grant of scenic and conservation easement at 3 Miller Avenue in Montauk. This public hearing will be held on Thursday, March 20th at 6 p.m. The grantor is Ellen Fine. Again, it's at 3 Miller Avenue, Montauk. Reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 376 is a notice of public hearing to amend Chapter 62, Civil Enforcement and Administrative Adjudication. The town board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. To consider a local law providing for the amendment of Chapter 62, Civil Enforcement and Administrative Adjudication of the Town Code. And this is to change a requirement that in the event of a default decision and order, the penalty imposed, that judgment may be entered in Town Justice Court or equivalent court or municipality or other place provided for the entry of civil judgments within the state of New York. And the entry of such judgment may be avoided by requesting a stay of default for show of good cause or by requesting a hearing or entering a plea in the manner set forth in the notice of violation within 30 days of mailing such notice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 377 is the notice of public hearing to amend urban renewal map SP 1-1, urban renewal parcel 32, and this is to amend a scenic easement requirement and move a access point. The town board will hear this matter on March 3rd, public hearing at 6 p.m.
Second.
Wait a minute. What did you say?
This is to move an access point. It's for Urban Renewable Map number 32 and SP 1-1, and this is to remove the access, to require, to change the requirements for the scenic easement, reduce it, and
Yeah, we got confused as you said the public hearing was on March 3rd. And that's,
oh, did I say that?
Yeah, so it's meant March 20th.
Yeah, meant March 20th.
That's why I got confused.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 378 is to amend urban renewal map, MN-6, urban renewal parcel 28C, and this is again to relocate an access point on an urban renewal parcel. The town board held a public hearing on October 3rd. I was getting ahead of myself, to consider a modification of an urban renewal map, MN-6 of the town's urban renewal plan to relocate the access point for urban renewal parcel number 28C. The town board finds the proposed modifications to be reasonable, appropriate, and in keeping with the urban renewal plans in which it is located. Resolved that the town board hereby approves the proposed modification, which is listed as follows.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 379 is to refund of an incorrect fee charge for rental registry number 24-896. Resolved that the bookkeeper is hereby authorized to issue a check in the amount of $200 to Adam Boxer, care of the Ubu Gallery in Brooklyn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 380 is to accept a road widening easement in urban renewal parcel 16 in SP-4-1. The town board of the town of East Hampton has adopted urban renewal plans covering lot layout and improvements for old file areas. The plan calls for a submission of easements by certain property owners for the purpose of permitting widening and other road improvements. Resolved that the town board approves and accepts these easements and directs the town clerk to return the easements to the grantor for recording. Resolved that the grantor is to return a conformed copy of said easement to the town clerk prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The grantor of these easements is Air Van Homes LLC, and this is located at 37 Gardner's Lane in Springs. It's a road widening easement, and it's dated February 18th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 381 is to accept security and undertaking for JMP Surfside LLC. This is urban renewal parcel 24 in MN-6, and like the previous resolution, this has to do with the urban renewal plans governing the development of old file maps. Again, it has to do with the timely construction of roads and drainage within the urban renewal area. And this is whereas the undertaking of security has been reviewed by the council of the planning board. Resolved that the undertaking of the security together with together with the following security are hereby accepted by the town. The applicant is JMP Surfside LLC, care of Katie O'Casey, East End Land Planning. The location of this property is at 117 Fairview Avenue in Montauk, and the security for this undertaking is $15,250.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
382 is a release of security in urban renewal parcel 9 in EH4, and resolved that the following security held by the town board is hereby released, and the town clerk is directed to return the same to the principal party named herein. This is for Bistrian Cement Court, care of Patrick Bistrian, and it's for property located at 69 Harborview Avenue in East Hampton.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And I'm sorry, yeah, the amount is $14,500, just for information. 383 is special event permit fees as of March 7th, 2025, whereas the provisions of Chapter 151, special event permits, set forth certain fees that shall be required to apply for and process a permit for special events, which fees are to be established and amended from time to time by resolution of the town board. Therefore, be it resolved that the following fee schedule is adopted and will become effective on March 7th and shall remain effective until modified by further resolution of this board. The total fee schedule is listed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 384, this is a list appointment to assessment aide, Timothy English, and an hourly rate of $28.11, which is $51,159.47 annually for a 35-hour work week. This is effective retroactive to February 24th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 385, this is to authorize mileage reimbursement for the Office of Housing and Community Development for Linda Norris, Ann Bell, and Jenny Munoz. Be hereby reimbursed for appropriate mileage at the standard mileage rate, effective retroactively to February 1st, 2025, upon properly submitted vouchers and documentation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 386, this is to authorize payment for past due invoice, Advanced Imaging Systems for the Office of Housing and Community Development. This is to approve a payment of $101.10 to Advanced Imaging Systems, Inc. for the monthly maintenance and copy count.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 387, notice to bidders, bid number EH 25-009, 19 Joshua Edwards Court, roof and door replacement. The bid is available for March 13th, 2025, and it'll be due back April 10th, 2025 at 3 p.m. A pre-bid meeting will be held at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, March 26, 2025 at 19 Joshua Edwards Court, East Hampton, New York. Attendance is encouraged, but not mandatory.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 388, accept bid number EH 25-006, Springs Park Restoration Test Plot, Jackson Dodds and Company, Inc. This is a bid of to award a bid to Jackson Dodds and Company for a total cost of $23,112. Sorry, Tom, that was a weird inflection.
That's okay.
Funny how we listen for each other's
Second, move for
inflections.
discussion. Sorry, on this one, just quickly.
Yeah.
So this is for the dog park.
Yeah.
What is the
Springs Park.
Springs Park. Okay, got you. It's different. What is the timing for this happening? Do you know this test plot?
Imminently. Department of Land Management recommended that we do the project in March to avoid accidental takings of animals that might be in the area when they come back and it warms up. Also, the trees are all dead and leafless right now, and so it's clear what you're doing, the work, and there'll be minimal sort of barren state as leaves will be coming out in the springtime. So this was the timing recommended by that department.
Okay.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Resolution 389, this is to authorize shed removal at 54 Tub Oarsman Road. This is to approve hiring Ronald Webb Builders to demolish and remove the shed and doghouse at 54 Tub Oarsman Road for an amount not to exceed $1,982.46.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 2025-390, and that's to appoint part-time office assistant to fire prevention, Marinez Barrios, at the hourly rate of $25.04, effective March 10th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
391 is to amend hourly rates for part-time office assistants to reflect the 2025 hourly rate increases, and this is effective March 9th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
392 is to approve extension of Resolution 2024-1257, the hearing officer Robert J. Ponzi Esquire for a disciplinary matter with no change in rate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
393 is to approve a payment for a hearing appearance for Christopher Anderson in the amount of $1,328.76.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
394 is a joint municipal bidding agreement with Eastern Suffolk BOCES. Jeannie Carrozza spoke to us about this at the work session on Tuesday, and it's in the amount of $3,264 for the 2025 rate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
395 is a 2025 budget modification for the town attorney's office. We're moving $280 from health insurance buyback, $425 from health insurance to travel, conferences, and dues in the amount of $705.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
396 is to accept bid EH 25-005, printing of miscellaneous forms for February 2025, and it goes to TSG Direct LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
397 is to approve a stipulation of settlement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
398 is to approve an annual stipend for Edward Schnell to perform duties related to information technology, specifically for the East Hampton Town Police Department in the amount of $12,500, effective retroactive to January 1st, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
399 is a payout upon retirement for Ryan Hogan. Ryan Hogan has retired from his full-time position as a detective sergeant with the East Hampton Town Police Department effective January 31st, 2025, and audited time records indicate that he has an accrued vacation time, accrued sick time, and accrued personal time. Plus, he has holiday pay and prorated two-tour night differential for a gross total of $133,704.54 payable to Ryan Hogan as a final payout. And we thank Detective Sergeant Hogan for his service to our community.
Second and here.
All in favor?
Aye.
400 is a payout upon retirement for Dorothy Peel. Dorothy Peel has retired from her position of account clerk with the Department of Marine Patrol effective January 31st, 2025, and audited time records indicate that she has accrued vacation time, accrued sick and personal time, and an accrued compensatory time. Plus, she's got prorated longevity for a gross total of $6,905.85 payable to Dorothy Peel as a final payout. And again, we thank Dorothy for her commitment to our town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
2025-401 is to adopt 2025 capital plan. The town board has discussed the draft capital plan for the fiscal year 2025 at the February 18th and March 4th work sessions, and the board has discussed and approved the plan as presented on March 4th. So now the town board hereby adopts the 2025 capital plan for a total of $13,043,400.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
402 is to retain Cooley LLP for airport matters for 2025 in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
403 is to authorize 2025 funding for RFP EH 2024-109. This is professional consulting services for continued remedial investigation of the airport Class 2 inactive hazardous waste site in the amount of $364,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have two for after the deadline. 404 is to list the appointment Office Application Specialist Susan Redding. Be it resolved that Susan Redding is hereby appointed to full-time position as Office Application Specialist within the IT department, the hourly rate of $27.42 for an annual salary of $57,036.10 for a 40-hour work week to be paid bi-weekly.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
2025-405 is for professional services. This is to retain Clay McLean Associates for design services at the sanitation department for hazardous waste collection.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, that's all we have. Does anyone have anything they need to bring up before we close?
Yeah.
I do want to say, Matthew, it was a busy night tonight, and we really want to thank you for your assistance.
Oh, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Matt.
So do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, Carol.